Hi, welcome to the course Emotional Intelligence and Wellness for Improved Learning. This short video is an introduction to this course that will give you an overview of what to expect. So Unit 1 will be the course introduction, and we are very glad that you're here. We believe that this topic can't be more important than it is. Oops, back. And we are here for you. So if you need any support, please email at educationforequity@gmail.com, and the employees there will direct your question to the right person, whether it be your instructor or tech support or whatever you may need. So often when we think of learning, we think of the brain. And when we think of the brain, we often think about knowledge, thinking, but often we don't realize or we aren't completely aware that our brain is also where our emotions come from. And actually, no learning can occur without emotions. So, whether the emotions are positive, whether they are some stress, whether they are fear, learning involves emotions. Here are just a few pictures of students hopefully learning, maybe just posing for these pictures, but students that may represent those in your class. There are emotions going on with every single learner. Some emotions, again, are positive, some are negative. Sometimes no learning is occurring, or very little learning is occurring due to emotions that are not being expressed or regulated, and we'll be getting into how we can make emotions our ally in the learning process and not an impediment. Just more learning and more emotions also relate to every single relationship. And as if you've taken our course on a conducive learning environment, building healthy relationships, also no learning occurs without a meaningful relationship. So Unit 2 will be on the neuroscience of emotions, and I know you may say, I'm not a neuroscientist, but you're a teacher or you're an educator, and educators are um, constantly working to improve the processing of our students' brains, as well as, of course, their whole person. And here's a quote by Miguel Angel Ruiz. Our brain is the factory of the emotions. Again, often we think of the brain as the factory of ideas, factory of knowledge or recall or construction of, our thoughts, but it's also the factory of our emotions. Unit 2, we'll talk about a little bit, break down the organization and the structure of the brain, the emotional brain, the thinking brain. And I want you just to take notice that in the second picture there, the brain with the rational brain and limbic system, the arrows go both ways. And actually, that double arrow is the representation of emotional intelligence. It's the working of our brain to both integrate the rational side with the limbic system or the response system to the emotional responses so that we can have the most optimal relationships and learning process. Unit 3 is on emotions and physical health. Emotions, positive emotions, or you will hear Susan Davis at one point during the course, if not more than one point. She doesn't believe in positive or negative emotions. They're just emotions. They're what we are as humans. They're what we feel. But anyway, emotions that tend toward good feelings have particular effects on our health, and emotions can also harm us. But I would like to just take a note here, or make a note that emotions really only harm us when we suppress them, we deny them, or we don't know how to regulate them properly. We don't know how to express them properly. And so that emotional intelligence that we develop in ourselves and in our students will help them to not have emotions harming them, but rather managing their emotions in such a way that their emotions are a benefit to them and to their relationships and learning. Helping people better manage their upsetting feelings like anger, anxiety, depression, pessimism, and loneliness is a form of disease prevention. And we'll look into the effects of emotional wellness and physical wellness. I think I just went too far. Unit 4 is on emotional well-being for social health. Obviously, our emotional state impacts our relationships, impacts our social integration, and our all of our interactions, and particularly in the school environment, so much depends on that social health for our students' learning and even for our own well-being as teachers. Unit 5 is on emotional well-being and learning, so this is kind of the key, in a sense, to the course, and I just love this quote in Immordino Yang's, that's Mary Helen Immordino Yang's book, Emotions, Learning, and the Brain. We feel, therefore we learn. Without feeling, there isn't learning. I don't know why it's skipping. And this slide just shows emotional thought is, again, that connection between the processes related to the body, like our seeing, our hearing, our feeling, our feeling related to touch, any input, sensory input, but it goes through our emotional thought, and that connection between the cognition and the emotional part of our brain is so key to our learning, the learning process. Unit 6 is on lowering students' affective filter for maximized learning. So stimulus comes in, it affects the emotions, and there is in turn often a filter through which then we interpret the information that has come through our various senses, and then we act. So a raised filter blocks learning, a lowered filter increases learning, and there are steps we can take as teachers and as educators to lower that affective filter. Unit 7 is on applying RULER, ruler, based on Mark Brackett's book, Permission to Feel. That book is really the underlying inspiration for this course, as some of us have been very touched and impacted by that book and felt this is so necessary. The book's subtitle, we'll see it later, but it's Unlocking the Power of Emotions to Help Our Kids, Ourselves, and Our Society Thrive. And he has 5 main steps related to emotions, and those are recognizing them, understanding them, and their causes and their consequences, labeling them, expressing them, and regulating them, all effectively and appropriately. And we will be looking into this graph, in a sense, this chart created by Mark Brackett, and basically this helps us to label, to recognize, to understand, to label, to express, and to regulate our emotions in a very practical way. We'll be getting into that. And Unit 8 is on heightening our students' emotional quotient, their EQ, low emotional intelligence and high emotional intelligence, impact students' future jobs and relationships and success in so many ways, more than their IQ. So emotional intelligence is more impactful on one's life than intellectual or their intelligence. Intelligence quotient. Unit 9 is on fostering emotional agility and resilience for each student's fulfillment of his or her learning potential and success. So are we introducing our children to a wider range of emotional colors? Are we helping them to build their agility? And this is where Susan David's work comes in the most. And I have a few quotes just to inspire you. These are, this and the next slide are quotes from Susan David. Discomfort is the price of admission to a meaningful life. So we aren't trying to just make our students purely comfortable, but actually we want them to have a meaningful life. Emotional agility is to be with your thoughts, emotions, and stories in ways that are compassionate, curious, and courageous. And only in that type of way and environment and internal state can students really learn at their best. Things change. We need flexibility to ensure that we can change too. And that's really what we are doing as educators and what our students are doing, to change while things change so that we can be the best versions of ourselves and we can contribute the most to our society. Unit 10 is on building capacity as a school for emotional health and emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence starts with us, and that's Mark Brackett's little quadrant there. The balancing of emotional health and emotional intelligence with just the you know the feeling brain and the learning brain, having a good balance for optimal emotional health and emotional intelligence. It starts with the whole school as a unit, as much as possible working together for the sake of our students in this area. And finally, before the final project, we'll be looking at how to apply these principles specifically to ourselves in order to thrive in our particular profession as teachers. And this is a little picture of Mark Brackett's book and a quote by Susan David that relates more to our workplace. For us in the schools, around the average workplace, stress seems to hang in oppressive clouds in the air above everyone's cubicle or classroom. Sadly, and much like secondhand smoke, secondhand stress can have a profound effect on everyone in its vicinity, both emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, and even physically. Unit 12 is the course conclusion with a final project where you will be creating a multimedia presentation. That presentation may be a recorded video. It may be a screen share, like what I'm doing right now. It may be a multimedia presentation that is not quite the screen share, but just something that people click through, or a multimedia paper with words and graphics. And it will summarize a point of learning as it pertains to a call of action and for a particular audience of your choice. And you'll be integrating what you've learned from the course with also your vast knowledge from your school, from your background, from your own growing up and learning process. So our students cannot be programmed. This robot was built to try to show emotion, but it was programmed, and our students obviously cannot be programmed. They are human, and emotions are human. Our students have emotions that are too critical in their learning process. And we are human. We are not robots. We have emotions, and those are key also for our teaching and our thriving. So together, let's guide our students as we ourselves also climb up this staircase toward emotions being our allies, our asset for the greatest learning possible. So thank you so much for joining the course.